It's a big day and welcome to another edition of From Down Under to Down South. I'm Aussie Mike, jumping back in the chair, and this week we're going to take you on a little bit of a journey as we explore one of Australia's greatest exports of the last decade. I'm talking about the one and only Bluey. It's certainly a topic that a lot of expats make them feel very homesick. We'll take a look at Bluey's creator, where some of the inspiration came from for the show. Take a look at some of the episodes that have been edited and even banned in the United States. And then a little bit later, I'll bring in a couple of resident Bluey experts who'll give you a bit of a quiz on some of the show's finer points. All that and more, so stick around. So unless you've been on a deserted island for the past 6 years, you have no doubt heard of today's show. But for those of you that have maybe been stuck on Castaway, Bluey is an Australian animated series specifically designed for preschool age kids, but it's certainly a show that parents alike can certainly understand and love as well. The show follows Bluey, who is a 6-year-old blue heeler puppy. And Bluey lives with her dad, whose name is Bandit, her mum Chili, and her little sister called Bingo. The show has a strong focus on family and also on the Australian culture. It was created by Australian animator Joe Brumm, who was born in Queensland and studied at Griffith University in Brisbane. Brumm relocated to London in 1998, where he worked on several British animated series, including Peppa Pig and Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. In 2009, he moved back to Brisbane, forming his own animation studio with the intent of making an Australian version of Peppa Pig. He decided that the show would centre around two kids played as dog characters with a focus on play-based learning and creating their own adventures set in Queensland's capital city. The series was inspired by Brumm's own experiences in raising two daughters and watching them play, and it's certainly something that I can relate to. In 2016, he created a 1-minute sample, which was picked up by Ludo Studios, who transformed it into a 5-minute pilot, and it was pitched at the Asian Animation Summit, which was held in Brisbane that year, and it was noticed by executives from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and the British Broadcasting Corporation. The concept was refined and presented again in 2017, where the two networks officially ordered 52 7-minute episodes, and the BBC invested 30% of the funding, along with acquiring global rights for distribution and merchandising. In June of 2019, the Walt Disney Company acquired the international broadcasting rights to Bluey from BBC Studios. This means that Disney has the right to show Bluey on all its television channels and streaming services in all territories outside of Australia, the UK, and China. The show has become one of the most successful Australian exports in the last decade, and it's also one of the most watched kids programs here in the United States. So it does beg the question, how much money does Australia's public broadcaster make from the show? And that answer is nothing. Ludo Studios handed the valuable commercial rights to BBC Studios because it saw value in having one media company take on all publishing, distribution, and merchandising. They said that the ABC did not have the firepower necessary to muscle into the commercial negotiations, so the ABC took broadcast rights in Australia, and the BBC took broadcast and commercial rights on a global scale. BBC generates close to £2 billion a year in licensing revenue, whereas its Australian counterpart generates less than $100 million a year. So you can see where there's a little bit of a difference in scale between the BBC and the ABC. There is one Australian company, though, that has done just a little bit well out of this whole show, and that is Melbourne's Moose Toys. They signed a deal with BBC Studios back in 2020 to become the exclusive toy maker for the TV franchise. The company's owners have grown their wealth to over $2 billion. That's billion with a B. All thanks to Bluey. American parents report that some Bluey-obsessed children have begun speaking with Aussie accents, using phrases from down under like brekkie and bin chicken and dunny. I think that makes a great change personally, because kids back home typically grow up watching American shows, learning American slang, and even speaking with American accents. Now our friends here in the US have to learn how to decipher the Aussie lingo instead. In the United States, Bluey has been edited for American audiences, with one episode even being cut altogether as it was deemed unfit for American children. For example, in the original version of the Relax episode, Bandit calls the kids dingleberries. Now, in the US, that actually has a different meaning than what it does in Australia. Here in America, that word means poop. whereas back home, it's just a fun word that we like to throw around. So for the American episode, Disney changed that word to Super Troopers instead. Other edits have been made before the show was even exported, after objections from Australian audiences. In the teasing episode, for example, Bandit and the kids originally tossed around a phrase that is a slur against Indigenous people, that phrase being ooga booga, and it was changed to shooby-doo-wah instead after the episode had aired. The episode Exercise was also similarly edited in America to remove a scene in which Bandit and Chili complain about their weight. Some episodes, like Taxi and Markets, have had references to vomit and poop, either toned down or cut completely. In one episode, Daddy Put Down, Bingo asks where babies come from, and the US version doesn't contain that line at all. I guess we're a little bit scared to tell our kids where babies come from over here. One Bluey episode is so apparently out of control and scary for American kids that Disney decided there was no way that it could be shown in the United States. And that episode is Dad Baby. Now, in Dad Baby, Bluey and Bingo find their old baby carrier, and Bandit shows them how it works by strapping it on. Now, Bingo promptly crawls inside, and Bandit pretends to be pregnant. He complains about stretch marks, watches as Bingo eats all his food, and then goes into labor. With Lucky's dad, Pat, acting as a midwife, Bandit tries to give birth. Bingo wants to prolong the game, though, so she bites Pat and crawls back into the carrier again. Pat eventually shoves his hand into the carrier and yanks her out. Unfortunately, American kids don't get to see the play acting in that one. The most watched episode in Australia is one that's called The Sign, and it came out just a few months ago. It was watched by almost 10% of the entire population of Australia, and it's a sign that really has you thinking when you've moved, especially as an expat as well, leaving where your kids grew up and moving somewhere else for opportunities, and it's certainly an episode that had Bicky in tears. Bluey's success comes from its popularity for both adults and for children. There's lessons in the episodes for both, and as an Aussie dad raising my kids in America, I love the fact that the things that I grew up with are being shown to them through this medium. Good on you, Bluey. So it's time to hand the chair over now to my two resident Bluey experts, Brie and Bowie. So take it away, guys.
What is Bluey Mom's name?
Let us know in the comments and like and subscribe as well. Appreciate you joining us, guys. Until next time, stay safe and we'll catch you again on From Down Under to Down South.